Somewhere here there's something that I can utilize to be better tomorrow than I am today. Where is it? You have to look yourself in the mirror and ask what matters to you. You know, what really matters to you. Regret is the worst thing we could experience. Not all who wander are lost. There's no value ever in pointing out and blaming at the world.
Today's interview is with Eddie Pinero, one of the greatest voices in the motivational world. And you may not realize he is the creator, the writer, the speaker for the Instagram page, Your World Within. Some of the speeches have reached millions and millions and millions of views and reached millions and millions of people. And he is a huge person and personality in this space. And I hope this shines some light on him. He is the genius behind all of this, and he is the guy who creates these words and lives by these mottos, and has been a huge inspiration for myself as well. So this is Eddie Pinero's interview and life story as well. Today's video was sponsored by betterhelp.com, where you can get online therapy with the link in the description from professionals. Something I have done for this whole last year. It's a difficult journey, but one I fully recommend doing if you're willing to go through that tough part at the start. And also Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can get the Mulligan Brothers hoodies, the Not a Journals, the Hardest Work Renewal hoodies, all that kind of stuff, linked down below. But before that, let's listen to the incredible story from Eddie Pinero and some of the incredible messages and lessons he has to share today. So for people who don't know, just introduce yourself and what you do.
My name is Eddie Pinero, and I'm a creator, entrepreneur, speaker, and storyteller.
For the audience, to give them sort of a background, like whereabouts did you grow up, and even for like we have British audience, like describe that as if it was a British audience.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great to have you guys in the States. But yeah, I grew up in a military family, so we moved around quite a bit. I was born in Japan on a naval base, and went to Virginia Beach, and then Phoenix, and then LA and Boston. Spent some time in Roanoke, and now down in the Miami area, so bounced around quite a bit. And as a kid, it was, you know, I loved sports and creativity, music, making things, you know. That was where my heart was at, and what I spent time doing with my buddies.
Yeah, I hear a lot of different experiences from living in a military family. On the channel, we've interviewed a lot of military guys, and usually they're also from a military family. Like, what was your experience like?
Yeah, well, you do move around quite a bit, but it's, in a way, it sort of toughens you up a little bit, right? I mean, you learn how to, you know, make new friends and adapt and change. It was almost like the precursor to, you know, real life. It was a beautiful way to see a lot of the country and, you know, go places I wouldn't have gone.
Okay, and then so, yeah, talking about like early days, like we see some people like basketball players or athletes, entrepreneurs, from 3 years old, this is what I wanted to do. Like, what was your experience in regards to what you do now? Like back then, looking back with hindsight, is there a connection?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I mean, there's definitely a connection, but it's one of those things where, you know, I never thought I would be a speechwriter, a motivational speaker. My thing was music, and it was always like, you know, there's a saying, not all who wander are lost, and that's sort of what I gravitated towards. And for me, it was, you know, my big epiphany was leaving the corporate world and writing songs and helping other musicians in the Boston area create songs, and then grabbing the camera, creating music videos, and then short films, and then you know, writing and creating like little, you know, 90-second movies or commercials, and it just kept gravitating until, you know, you hit that intersection of what you love and what adds value, right? I mean, when that happened, and you know right away, it's almost like there's fireworks. I started waking up super excited to create this content and tell these stories, and then on the other end, people are saying, hey, you know, that I connected with that, thank you. And that's the light bulb moment. That's like, we're all in right there, you know, that's the money.
Amazing. Let's jump back to that in a second, but I have to pick up on this quote, not all who wander are lost. And that's really, like, when I would say myself, Luke, and William, our other brother, one of the Mulligan brothers, like, I would say all of us, before we came together to do this, were wanderers. Like, we were like, so like how, and at times that can feel
you can feel lost in that situation. You know, it can be lonely. Like, just, I mean, speak to, like, if you could, to the wanderers out there who, like, you know, who, that message I think is fantastic, to know that they are on a path still.
Yeah, well, to your point, I mean, there's this preconceived notion that we have to have it figured out, that life is a checklist, A, B, C, D, you know, you're going in order, and if you're not where you're supposed to be, you've messed up. And it's like, if you don't allow yourself to stumble a little bit, to try things, to take your L's, you'll just never get where, you know, you innately most want to be. I mean, in talking about our YouTube journeys and you know, parallel, you know, you mentioned that there were some curveballs that put you guys where you are. Same thing with me. It was like the weirdest things, at the time, most disappointing things, like all of that allowed me to pivot and ask myself, you know, what do you want? How can you delve further into what's meaningful? And yeah, if you're living from a standpoint of, I have to do what's right, I can't mess up, I need to, you know, straight line, you'll just miss out on some of the most beautiful aspects of life. And that's, you know, that's why I go to that quote all the time. Not all who wander are lost. Remind myself, take risks, try things. You know, you'll fall, you'll make an idiot out of yourself. You'll look back in 2 years and be like, oh God, you know, cringe. But that's where the value is, and it'll propel you forward.
You know, when you're aiming for a goal, so like for myself, I was hell bent on getting to the NBA. Like, that was me. Like, that's what I thought. I genuinely believed it, and I failed at that goal. But that having that path and that direction, and looking back now, led me here 100%. Like, this, it was the same path, and then we just took a little detour.
Yeah.
So I mean, what is, like, how would you define that to somebody, like, to maintain that through your life? Like, for me, I see it as having purpose. Like, my purpose was basketball at the time, but it changed now. I mean, do you see that with yourself as well as your own journey?
I do, yeah. I mean, and it's we learn, you know, you can say from athletics, but we learn from certain chapters and carry that into the next components of our lives. Like, for me, I'm always talking about the parallels between running and the creative aspect of what I do. There's so many parallels. It's like, you know, moving forward when it hurts, when you don't want to, or the idea of you know, not knowing, you know, not being able to see a finish line. And it feels like borderline insanity. You know, when you start something new, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube channel, a video production business, whatever it is, it's nothing at first. I mean, you have to will it into existence, and that's something that, you know, you can look back and sort of piecemeal from different parts of your life where, you know, you weren't doing that particular thing, but it's still, you know, and there's, you know, in terms of the basketball thing, Ryan Holiday is a beautiful distinction between passion and purpose that I've always sort of stuck with. You know, the idea that passion is like that quick blast of dopamine. It's exciting, it's fun, it's starting a new podcast, you know, in the first month, everything's exciting, but then the views don't come right away. The downloads don't come right away. Then the passion doesn't mean very much, then it's purpose. And it's like, can you get through that valley of despair? What are you going to do with that? That's when most people stop. But if you're looking, you know, big picture, you have an advantage that most people don't. And, you know, that's a mindset. That's something that doesn't matter what you're doing, you can drop into any aspect of your life.
Purpose. I really love the word purpose. And I feel like you had the same, very similar moment to us. I remember we put out a piece, our first piece, and a comment came back, and it was like, or a message, and it was, this was amazing, thank you so much, it helped me. And it's almost like the purpose just popped up straight away. It was so amazing. Recount, like, if you can, that moment where that happened, and get at the start, you get that quiet, you know, they're the things that keep you on track as well, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we were saying earlier, like, the thing about the digital space is you're looking at numbers. You're looking at clicks, you're looking at likes, you're looking at views, and that's great. And, you know, from a business standpoint, from an analytical standpoint, it helps. But you can't derive true meaning from that. And so for me, it was like, you know, the emails that started coming through that was like, I'm at a very tough time in my life, and your story helped me think about things differently. And that's when it's like, you understand the magnitude and the impact you can have. In a few things, like one, it's never like this monumental shift. It's a tiny little change in perspective, that someone can step back and be like, oh, the opportunity's right there. And it may be small, but that's all I need to get the ball rolling. Yeah, I mean, it's such a rewarding thing,
Do you remember the Snowball Effect, like where you was like, oh, I might be able to do this, like this is building into something?
Yeah, well, it took a long time. Little by little. I remember when I said, you know what, I'm going to commit to this. And this is going to be, everything else is out. And, this is going to be my full-time thing. And I was still living in Boston at the time, in a little apartment. And, just decided, hey, if I can help a few people like this, then I can help a lot of people like this, and it's just a matter of sticking with it. It's a matter of, the times where you create something that you think is monumental and it's going to change the world, and you release it and maybe it flops, maybe it doesn't, but you don't get discouraged, and, you move on to the next one. And it's just repetition, adjustment, self-belief, all these things that manifest over time. And that's what you guys talk about in your videos too. It's like, so much of it is just committing to this process.
I remember our first filmed piece was that it's going to change the world. Like, it was so monumental to us, and it flopped, and it hurt, it stung, but we did manage to keep going. I mean, how do you keep going in those moments, like, especially when you're so invested into this? Like, how did you keep going?
I think you learn to depersonalize it, right? Like a thick skin where it's, hey, this is not a referendum on me or my talent or my ability. This is, some shots go in and some don't. And, the second you understand that, it's freeing. There was a point where it's like, how could this not do well? I spent, 30 hours making this and my heart and soul went into it. It's life. It's life, and there's value to extract. Maybe you look at it, understand why it missed, why it didn't, but you move on. It's truly mobility that creates our advantages in life, because you can't be perfect, you can't plan everything, but it's like you're trying to navigate something that's constantly moving. So when you step into it, you'll take your L's and grab your lessons, but ultimately down the road, you're a different person than when you started. And I think that's what it's about, the courage to sort of step into that moving dynamic.
This is me making assumptions here, but well, not assumption on this. Very, very skilled person, motivated person, highly driven, could probably be extremely successful in a corporate job working up the ladder. And you decided to stop that. And my assumption is that probably put yourself in a more compromised situation financially, right. Difficult situation to help others. I'd love to know why. Like, what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, two reasons: impact and upside. I can have a better impact doing what I'm doing. When you're in the corporate world, I mean, sure, you can impact the people around you, you can help your business, but it's, my heart and soul was not in the mission. It's really hard to, get up every day and be excited about something when you're just not in it. And I wanted to feel it. I wanted to live and breathe it. The other thing is, when it's your business, when you wake up in the morning, you'll get out what you put in, and I love that. It's like, if I want to stay in bed all day, I could, but I'd get nothing. But getting out and stepping into this sort of unknown, the infinite potential, who knows what can happen? Right? And that's, evolution has been the most fun. I mean, I've talked to people, gone places, I've participated in projects, done things that never really dreamed of doing, because I sort of took on that risk. And, entrepreneurs know that, artists know that, everyone does in some capacity. But this, 8-year journey now has certainly reinforced it.
Why helping people? Like, there's gaming out there. There's so many different genres of YouTube. You probably could have been successful. Like, why help people?
It feels good. It feels good. One is I love personally the idea of perspective and mindset. I'm fascinated by it. And two, just to take something that you've lived and give that to someone else who, you know, might be in a different place in their life, might be doing something totally different, but that connection that's like, hey, you know, you went through that, you learned that lesson, and in my totally different corner of the universe, I'm applying it, and you know, it's changed everything for me. And I can't even articulate it. It's just such a beautiful feeling that, yeah, I mean, I knew that was sort of my lane. You know, I just love it.
Is there that for everybody? You know, is there that I feel so privileged to wake up each morning with that purpose and to know, like, I'll never lose that. Like basketball wasn't the same for me. Like it didn't feel like this. Whereas like this is like, I know I could do this for the rest of my life. Like there's no doubt about it. Is there that for everybody? Like it feels like almost like it couldn't spread out throughout the world, you know, like that. But can everybody have that in their life?
I think yes. I mean, I think it just requires exploration and some risk. It's hard because to obtain something new, you have to leave something behind, right? And it's very difficult to uproot certain aspects of your life. I mean, you know, when I was doing this, or when I started, friends and family, people that only love me, right? They only want the best for me. You know, they're saying, hey, you know, you have a good thing going. Are you sure you want to do this, right? I mean, there's a lot of resistance. The you know, the no money thing, even the pride thing, the uncertainty. I mean, it's tough to not know what you're doing for a while. But I think anyone willing to step in and explore and test the waters and understand that something beautiful will come out of it, you know, there's, again, that word upside. It's all there. You know, you just have to sort of step out from where you are, which is always the most difficult part.
Yeah, taking that leap of faith, it could choke people to the point where they just won't do it. Like, I mean, so many people would daydream on taking that leap of faith. Like, how would you, obviously not convinced, like people need to come to their own conclusions on this, but like what kind of advice would you give to somebody who was, you know, maybe considering that?
I think regret is the worst thing we could experience. That, you know, to stay where you are and look at life through a window is not, although, you know, we're biologically conditioned for that safety, ultimately, you know, it's not going to get us where we want to be. And the thing is, it doesn't need to be all at once either, right? It's not like you have to drop everything. We're talking about little movements, little pieces. We're talking about creating some type of momentum or progression. You know, when I started doing this, like I mentioned, it wasn't like quit my job, boom, speechwriter. No, I mean, I explored. I had a studio part-time while I was working. I was, you know, taking the camera out. I was writing songs. I started writing speeches. You know, it's just gravitating towards what's meaningful to you. And it's funny, like I went my whole life without thinking about it. And you can. It's very easy to not think, hey, what's meaningful to me? What do I want out of life? And so it's almost like you want to remind the world that there is more, and it is obtainable, and it is scary, but it's worth it. Just start.
I mean, for us, Luke was on it full time. At the time, financially, it wasn't something that you required either. And then for me, I did the stupid thing of like, I think pretty much sold my business at the time and jumped on board. Financially, massive risk. Luckily, it paid off. But like the way we practically tell people to do it now is, if you're going to do it and you've got a job, try reduce one day. Just try it, or a few hours, or maybe at the start, just work a couple extra hours at night instead of watching TV. But then take one day off and apply that to work, and wait until the point, keep doing that until you can get the point where this becomes your main income, or enough to live off, and then transfer over. And I think so many people think, and we hear these stories, romanticized stories of, I quit my job, I threw everything in the bin, I walked out and then I started it, and you know, I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, but then you know, that makes it so much harder, you know, like it. Right. But I don't think people think about it practically, that there is a smarter way of doing this.
Yeah, it's like you have to be pragmatic about it. Charlie Munger has a quote. He says, you know, you are your own experiment. You have to sort of feel things out and understand, you know, when the time is right, and you know, how much how risky you want to be. It's you know, I when I quit, things weren't all laid out, and you know, in a similar way, it's like I'm very grateful that I had that fire underneath me, but I hesitate sometimes with that, you know, advice, because yeah, you want to take small steps, but you know, maybe sometimes completely cutting is what's necessary. It's like, it really is being aware and understanding what you want, where you are, and how to bridge that gap, right? It's like the worst thing you can be is all these millionaires that get on camera and say, hey, you can't do it too because of the system. It's like, wait, what? Or you know, you hear authors saying, you know, sometimes just showing up is enough. You don't need to go above and beyond. It's like, well, you wouldn't have that best-selling book if you didn't go above and beyond. So you never want to give advice that you didn't yourself take. I think everything is situational, and everything is dependent upon, again, where you are, where you're going, and the best way to bridge that gap.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I think, I mean, and there is so many different approaches as well. It's like, right. You know, we look at success stories, and I think we obviously gravitate to, I would say, the extreme ones. Like they're more entertaining to listen to, but they are so varied. And I think, again, people get wrapped up into the romantic notion of it, but like there's loads of different, there are the romantic stories, there's the overnight successes, there's the 20 years in the pipeline, like, yeah, so exactly, yeah. It happens throughout. For yourself, like, do you remember those difficult moments? Like, is there a day specifically that comes up for yourself?
I wouldn't say anything catastrophic, but I would say a lot of, I mean, there were times where keynotes didn't go well, you know, and now that's a huge portion of what I do. But I remember, you know, being backstage, you know, sweating with the microphone and thinking like, you know, why am I doing this? And, you know, getting through and just, you know, learning from it and picking up the pieces and continuing to move forward. Same thing with like the YouTube space. You know, I've worked in projects that didn't necessarily do well. It's almost like what we were talking about before. It like really is a thick skin in being able to understand, here's what I want to be, A, B, and C. And, you know, it's not going to be most likely one crack of the bat that takes you there. It's going to be continuing to get up after the swings and misses. And, you know, that's when I look back at the past 8 years, I mean, there were plenty. But you extract the value from them and, you know, put it into the next step, into the next project.
How do you keep the resilience, like, or even develop the resilience to keep going, getting up and going up for another swing?
It's become my identity. I burn the boats, right? So it's like, you know, Eddie Pinero, founder of Your World Within. That's it, right? That's what it's going to be. And when you give yourself no other option, other than to, you know, elevate that brand and try and add value to as many lives as possible, it's all you can think about, right? I mean, you were asking, what do you do for fun? And it's like, you know, even in my free time, I'm daydreaming about different things to create, different ways to articulate messages. It's just, I love it. And so there is really no plan B. And for me, that's made all the difference. And it's been sort of, you know, it's gotten stronger and stronger and stronger, you know, over the years, where everything is now consolidated into this. And that's what gets me going.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps then, because I think one of our insecurities around the company is that we are so heavily invested in Mulliganbrothers. Like, this is it. Like, this is what's happening. This is our plan A. But then the insecurities comes out, well, what happens if, you know, what happens if this happens to Mulliganbrothers? But then with that insecurity, it's also been our strongest point, you know, to know that there's 3 people who are just investing everything into a super specific thing. How would you advise about people like, I mean, spreading themselves thin amongst and not having that one thing?
Yeah, well, you know, when it comes to something like your video production, I mean, you guys are, you know, you have the foundation, you're talented, you have everything. It comes, like, failure at some point doesn't mean things went wrong. At some point, failure means I decided to stop, right? And there's a very big difference, because you could have a catastrophic event. All this, you know, all this equipment could get stolen. But you could figure out a way, maybe with lesser equipment, to get to the next shoot, and the next, and the next, and the next. So it really comes down to a decision to move forward, right? And in terms of spreading yourself thin, like too much, you know, it's what's your value add, and how do you best do that? How do you best give that to the world? Like a very pragmatic example would be, people ask me a lot about, like, what social platforms do I post on, right? There's an infinite amount of social platforms. And, you know, some of the advice out there is you put it everywhere. You know, my thought is, and this is probably you know, a microcosm of the bigger answer overall. It's like, you pick the one that allows you to best be you, and go all in on that. You learn about yourself, you build a community, and you find your lane, right? So if you are a great communicator, you love sitting down and having a conversation, it would be the podcast, right? If you're pictures, Instagram, you know, videos, YouTube, and you get the point. But it's understanding you, your skill set, your value add, and how to best bring that to the world.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think it's easy to get caught up in delivering it to everybody, and even with other businesses as well, is like catering to other people's needs. Like, it happens all the time. Let's give you the catastrophic event, like the worst, like obviously something that would never happen, but like, let's sued for into the ground, right? Everything's like all possessions taken away, all finances taken away. What would you do, and why would you still do it?
Yeah, well, there's an idea that I think this is from the happiness hypothesis. If you took all the wealth from the top 10%, they'd have it back in X number of years, not because of their equipment or, you know, the things they have around them, but because they've acquired the mentalities and the understandings and the skills to recreate that. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I've slowly been building up, you know, equipment in a studio and these little luxuries, but over a decade, I've learned to help people through storytelling. You can't steal that. You know, I can't lose that. You know, or speaking in a way that helps people think about things differently, how to package that, how to turn that into, you know, a scalable business. That's up here, and that's not going anywhere. And so there's comfort in that, you know. That's what it's all about. That's what the process is. It's an armor that you wear.
I want, again, like for us, like we had a realization of this just a couple of years ago. Like, hold on, no one can take this from us. Like, they could come in and you know, everything can be taken away from us, but the skills acquired and the way in which we do it's ours. Like, it's not. Yeah. It's inside forever. Yeah, which is such a wonderful feeling. You obviously get a lot of messages. You speak to a lot of people who follow you. Is it something that comes up like frequently between people, like among people, where you're like, I've seen this a lot of times. Like this, it's a frequent issue that people are having. Do you see that? Is there a theme to it?
I think a lot of times it's people being stuck in a situation that's not quite ideal, but what I see is that it checks off basic boxes, right? So it's almost like you sign the dotted line to make it your reality forever, because there are a few basic things that you have, as opposed to, you know, maybe something better down the road, but you'd have to, you know, lose the temporary comforts. And it's like, you know, my message for that is always the same. It's like, you can recheck those boxes, right? Being in a relationship with someone that is not good for you, because you are in a relationship and don't want to be alone is not a good thing, right? And so you have to detach from that, and it hurts, but then you can find that again in a way that is more in line with who you are and what matters to you, right? Same with the job. It's like, we were just chatting about this, like it's great to have that income coming in. It is, but waking up every day and being fulfilled, it's hard to even explain. It's a feeling that it's an excitement that you can't get anywhere, that money can't give you. And so it's helping people understand, hey, you know, if you rip the Band-Aid off, or at least start moving that way, it's going to be uncomfortable, but the good stuff's on the other side. So it's always like, because things usually are not completely bad or completely wonderful. It's always like, I'm not really happy with where I am, but X, Y, and Z.
If you are enjoying this interview, please consider heading over to betterhelp.com and support our sponsors of the video today. You can get online professional therapy using the link in the description, something I fully recommend. Let's jump back into the interview.
And it's like, this is when you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask what matters to you. You know, what really matters to you. Is that existing now? And if not, you need to find it and you need to draw a line to it. Yeah, I would say in one capacity or another, that's what comes up the most.
So like, yeah, so in terms of that, so are you asking people to really practically think about further down the line, like, so past the short term? Because it's so easy to get caught into the short-term comfort. That's, I mean, humans, like, that's us.
Yeah. Well, we make concessions. You know, we stay in relationships we're not happy with because we don't think about it. Or we stay in situations we're not content with because we don't think about it. I always say, like, you know, I was very blessed. I was very lucky in my childhood, but I didn't ask Eddie, what do you want out of life until what, 23, 24? I just never, I don't even know how to articulate. I just never thought about that. I saw that freedom as a luxury, not something that's obtainable that I could and should go after. And you know, it got to the point where, you know, I was with one of my buddies, we're driving to work, and you know, we're joking around about a flat tire. We're like, gotta be awesome if, you know, if we got a flat tire and pulled us off the road here, we could be 2 hours late to work. And it's like, light bulb moment, what are you doing? This is not the way to live. You know, and sort of started asking the right questions, I think, at that point.
It's really strange you say that. I remember I used to work on as a labourer, and this was just before me and Luke started working together, and I was on a van, and every morning on the van I'd wish for the flat tyre. And funnily enough, one day we broke down, the van set on fire, and I was sat by the side of this road with this van just on fire waiting for the fire department to come. And I was so happy that I didn't go to work, and it's like, that's so sad, like, and so many people are like that, like.
That's amazing, same story.
Yeah, it's pretty, but like, and it is like, what I didn't realize is the van would be fixed, I'd be at work tomorrow, you know, I'm back to it again. And I mean, that cycle happened for a long time. I was working on the vans for a good 4 or 5 years, like, in this job I really didn't like to do, but provided finances, you know, it covered me short term, but I also hated it at the same time.
Yeah.
That's when we started, like, maybe a little bit of part time, like I'd dabble in it a little bit, but so it did eventually stop. But it's so easy to get caught in that. Like, it is really so easy to caught in that. On the flip side, like, for myself, I was running a business, wasn't passionate about it, but it was my idea of becoming successful. Like, I was going to do this to become successful. And it was failing. How I was so hell-bent on this working that I couldn't quit. I couldn't stop it. Like,
yeah.
Is there a point in time where people need to go, right, okay, let me assess this. I'm not happy doing this. Maybe I should pull the plug on it.
Yeah, I think it's a, you know, it's an assessment though. I mean, there are things where you can fall in love with the aspect of growth and creating a business. And it's really, I guess the best way to answer that is, you know, in the motivational space, in self-help, personal development, there's a lot of black and white. There's a lot of right, wrong. Bezos did this, he didn't do this. Therefore, you do this and not this. And I think so much of it's feeling it out. You know, it's like when you're in a business, it's hard. Things don't always go the way you want them to. And so you have to diagnose whether it's short-term frustration, short-term pain, or truly a lack of commitment and love for the end goal. And I think if that love is not there, you have some thinking to do. We are, and we're lucky in the first place to have these jobs where, they are putting money in our bank account. But the reality is we live in a society, I mean, you could say the West in totality, where it's this beautiful point in time where we have the luxury of pursuing meaning. It's like, we can. And why waste that? It's again, it's something that's not very intuitive. It's something that's not taught in schools, but it's there and it's a reality. We just have to train ourselves to ask the question,
Yeah, tapping into intuition, trusting yourself, trusting your gut feelings, even sitting with yourself. It's a rare thing, especially when you get into the corporate world and you start working a job, you don't stop and go, well, hold on a sec, am I even happy doing this?
Right.
I'd love to hear your opinion on just being able to have that time to yourself and thought to yourself and really start to work with yourself in that way.
Such an important question. Yeah, I had an epiphany not too long ago where it's like, I consume so much, right? And it's awesome, audiobooks, podcasts, all the time, to the point where I'm in the shower, I have an audiobook going, I'm waking up, I'm listening to a speech, and it's very easy to just forget to be alone with yourself. And so I started to make a point to go on these walks where it's just you and your thoughts, right? Not even music. And it's the best time you can have. It really is. One, because it trains you to just remove yourself from the digital space that we're entrapped in a lot of ways. But there's this clarity that we don't find in our day-to-day. You can ask yourself, some of the questions that we were just discussing. You can think about strategically what you're doing, where you're going, maybe why you're going there. It's funny how some of the most fundamental, important questions are just not asked. And they're not asked because we're doing other things. And it's like, we're in the engine room, on this ship, having no idea where in the horizon it's pointed to. Someone had he made a point to me. We were talking about business in general. And so, I'm in a spot, and I think to an extent you guys are too, where it's like I'm in front of the camera, but also I'm running a business. And the idea was, Eddie, you're so often Mickey Mouse, meaning the character in front of the camera, that maybe sometimes you forget to be Walt Disney in certain ways. Like, big picture, what are you doing? CEO this thing. And it was like, started taking long walks and really thinking holistically, what do you want this to mean, right? Because the sky's the limit. You can take it any way you want, but you have to think about it and you have to be methodical about it. Otherwise, it's just luck. Where are you going to end up? And so that was a really powerful idea for me.
I love that. I really like that. Yeah. Yeah. Walt Disney it. That's such a fantastic way of saying it. Delivering motivational speeches and videos and content. So we just before we spoke about you've done a softer version, more and then obviously there's the powerful stuff as well, time and place. What's the difference? How are they delivered? Who do they reach?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a derivative of art. Humans are emotional. We're not rational, right? And so if someone told me what to do, it'd be one thing, right? I could read a book, I could see a checklist. But when you feel something, you act on it. And so to me, what really gets me excited is taking these things I've lived through, I've learned, some of them wonderful, some of them not so much, but creating them and telling the stories in an artistic way that makes people truly feel it through their experiences. It's never, this is the right thing, this is how you should do it. I don't know the answers, I don't know everything, but I know what I lived through, and I know what I value and what's been meaningful to me. And if I can express that and share that in a way that helps, someone on the other side of the country or even world, I love that. And so I really do look at it as, and I think some of it stems from my music background. Like, I look at it as an artistic piece. How do I move someone into motion, give them that push, help them see the world in a way that 7.5 minutes ago they didn't see the world. I just think that's an incredible concept.
I'd tell you about your videos as well, is like sometimes you could be sitting on something that you didn't realize was there, and your video will just unlock that. So it's such an amazing thing, and it just feels like it just lines you up. Like, it is really amazing. It's almost like, you didn't see the world. I like the way you say it. You didn't see the world that way. Personally, advice: if I was trying to get on camera, how do you come across with the authenticity? And I think I've maybe spoke to people about this before, and it's like, well, just be yourself. But even being yourself, as soon as that camera's in the way, it can change something a little bit. It comes off a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It does. It's repetition, and I feel like that answer is a cop-out, but it's, you just keep doing it. And every time you hit the record button, you think about it being on a little less and a little less and a little less and a little less, where it's like you can pull off the mask and the layers and talk as you talk and be you. Some people have, a more natural proclivity than others, but everyone can make monumental progress in that area. It's just doing it, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't even have to share it, but if you commit to, let's say, 2 minutes a day on your iPhone, hitting record and talking into a camera, in a month, even the progress is incredible. During the pandemic, a lot of the keynote speaking stuff I was doing was put on hold, and I thought, well, these are make or break moments, right? This is going to be an opportunity to really double down, triple down in the digital space. And so I took my stuff from YouTube and also started doubling it as a podcast, and put the camera in front of my face, and for 150 episodes, spoke for 10 minutes right into the camera. And a little bit less methodical than the speeches that I write, right? It was sort of free talking. But I'll tell you, on day 150, it was just, I look over my shoulder and I'm like, this is unbelievably different than day one, and it's just setting it up and doing it, and knowing that it's awkward and knowing that it's a little uncomfortable, but like we talked about, just doing it.
I love that. I will give it a go. I think obviously I'm on camera a lot more now, so I'm starting to feel more natural, but I always found I think maybe there's a tone of telling somebody what to do versus sharing that experience. And I think finding that balance is really important, whereas people don't want to be told what to do.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Some people do, but it wants to be shared from a genuine space of I really get that you would probably talk to a friend like this. If they were struggling, some of your videos, I imagine that's how you would explain to a friend.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it's about. I mean, it's storytelling. I think the very idea that you have all the answers when you sit down is a red flag to begin with, right? It's like, I've lived a little bit and I've done some things and I've learned from that. And, serving that up in a way that I enjoy and that I think will add value, that's the sweet spot. If you sit there and think that you have everyone's blueprint to success, it's, one, the world's not cookie cutter, and two, it says a lot about, you as an individual. Life is fluid, everyone's different, and people, I guess what you want to do is create a buffet where people can take what's valuable to them and insert that into their lives. And if it's one thing, beautiful. It's one thing that wasn't there before,
Yeah, I think we say that about we want to interview as many people as we can, because one person might be the right fit for somebody. You don't know who is the right fit. And I think it is perceived as a cookie cutter. In motivational world, the guy shouting down the camera.
It's tough.
So there is that like typecast, like that's the way it is. Like it's not at all, but I think people expect. I mean, have you experienced that? Like, oh, you're a motivational speaker. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So for me, it is a heart versus head thing, you know. And I don't know if we want to get into the technical piece, but for me, it was like, you know, I loved and still do, the like movie title names for videos, right? Like when I first started putting out videos, it was like dancing before the music plays, running in the rain, real like, you know, they bring you in, they, you know, get your curiosity up, they make you feel something. But the reality is, you can have what you believe is the best speech ever written that's going to help so many people. If it's not titled the same, or titled the right way, or branded the right way, it's going to sit in the dark. No one's going to see it. So having to call everything motivational video, right? You get lumped into that. And I understand it, and I understand the value, but it's like, oh man, it hurts a little bit. It just feels so much bigger than that, you know?
100%. And I think, again, is like, if you're involved in the social media space, if you're online, you have to have those trade-offs. You have to sell it a little bit and make sure that you're adhering to, you know, YouTube or whichever platform it is. Like we were talking about before, creating the content in a certain way, like the 10-minute rule, all that kind of stuff. When that came into place, like, it changed everything. But the most important thing, I'm guessing for yourself and for us, is making sure people see the message. Like, if nobody sees it, which can happen on YouTube, like very easily, it's not helping anybody. It's not going to go to anybody. So there is a trade-off for sure. So I think I wanted to just talk about, like, there is the person who comes to our video, and they come to our video in a moment of distress, you know. I'm guessing very similar for yourself, like loss of a loved one, relationship ending. If you could default like a thing that, like a little message that came up for people when that happened, and it was your voice going, this and this, it's like, what would it say?
Yeah, I when I'm in those spots, or when I'm talking to someone in those spots, like I like to visualize, like you feel like you're in this dark room. You just feel like you're in a bad spot. And so the idea is there's always a light switch. There's always, you're not going to feel incredible the next day. Like, I get that. You know, we have to be pragmatic about it. But there's always a little piece of value to be obtained if you reach out for it. And that's where you have that mental discipline, where it's like you feel like the world's ending, but you have to teach yourself to step back, take a breath, and say, somewhere in this mess, there's a little piece of value. Where? Somewhere here, there's something that I can utilize to be better tomorrow than I am today. Where is it? And to me, that's always gotten me through. You know, it's like, again, I divert away from the idea of a home run swing or something that's going to fix everything overnight, but it's like, just get on base. Just move forward, because there's something there. There's always something there. And I think that hope is incredibly valuable. We forget. I mean, when we're at our lowest, we forget that, you know, it's temporary, that storms pass. And yeah, that reminder is big in those situations.
Yeah, definitely. In the world of motivation, I feel that of past like 3 years, ambition was so celebrated. The idea of working hard was celebrated. Working towards your goals was celebrated. I feel like we're almost turning the tide a little bit with like ambition's a little bit sick, like you know, like it's like almost like frowned upon. And I really try and I feel like it's getting a bad rep right now, ambition, like to really want something, which I think is unfair. I mean, thoughts on ambition, first of all?
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with you. I think societally, victimhood is becoming the currency. And I think it's an incredibly dangerous game to play, you know, and I see it the most on TikTok. You know, not to generalize, but it happens to be where, you know, you see people truly reaching out for attention, pointing about, or, you know, projecting out at the world for being wronged. And it's like, I don't know your situation. I couldn't place myself in your shoes. But what I can tell you is that there's no value ever in pointing out and blaming at the world. It's what can I do to fix the situation? It's like Will Smith's comment, you can't control where you started, but you can always control where you go from here. Ambition, personal responsibility, personal agency will change your life. I mean, the issue is that it's harder. It's harder to look in the mirror to point in to say, all right, what can I do differently? That's never an easy question. But I think it's, when that light bulb went off for me, it had a profound impact on my life, right? It's not your boss. It's not, this person, that person, or this person. It's you failing to navigate around what's in front of you. So Eddie, how can you step up and build something with these pieces? And so when I think of ambition in today's day and age, I just think a lack of understanding, just because it's so easy to point out and it's rewarded. And whether the pendulum swings back, I hope it will. I think it will. But I think that message is incredibly important in today's day and age.
So taking ultimate accountability, like how important it is to be accountable for your actions?
Everything. I mean, you don't control the car when you're riding shotgun. You just don't. So, if you want to change your situation, you have to drive and you have to assume the risk, and the responsibility and some of that stuff that's difficult. But again, that's the only way to get where you need to go. It's almost like, I think a black and white way to put it is, unless you are saying, what can I do better, you're powerless, right? I think it's that simple. By pointing at anyone or anything else, you are removing your greatest superpower, your ability to do something about it.
And then back to the point of victimhood, so we were speaking about this the other day, there is a social currency in being a victim or going through traumatic experiences, but on the flip side of it is some of the greatest motivational and inspirational messages we've had is people sharing those moments of trauma and saying how they got through it. How do you navigate, not using it as a social currency now that we're at this point of social media, but also reaching over the hill and helping people back over with that story?
Well, I mean, those speakers are perfect examples. You take, Inky Johnson, for example. He could have easily dwelled on his unfortunate situation, but no, he turned it into a message that inspires millions of people. Hey, I was down and out. I lost everything. I thought my life was over, but I turned it around, and you can too. And you're right. You always have to be. It's never about minimizing trauma, because again, I don't know what people have been through, and we've all been through some horrific stuff. Some people, things I can't even imagine. The fact still remains at that point in time, whatever it may be to better your situation, there can be a step taken in the right direction, right? There's always something to move into. It's just we don't think that way. We're not wired to think that way. What can you turn that unfortunate situation into, because there's something there.
I mean, looking back as Eddie getting into the corporate world, maybe, what kind of advice would you have given him back then? Same to other people right now, starting out in their careers.
Be less serious. I like the idea of life as a game. I was so concerned with not making mistakes that I didn't see the upside. I didn't see the opportunity. I didn't see the risk reward dynamic. I always tell the story. This was a game-changing situation for me, being at a table with some tech entrepreneurs, and this is maybe 3 years ago now. Being the YouTuber at the table, I was sitting there just listening, right, just absorbing, and these guys are going around talking about life like it's a game, talking about ventures in multi-million-dollar deals like it's fun, like it's checkers, right? And a couple of them were immigrants, came here with nothing, and just took what's around them and made something incredible with it. It reminds me of my friend's son in North Carolina, going around and just poking things, and little kid, right, playing with it, taking things and seeing how he can use a book for, to make a fort, and a blanket to do this, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I think we fall into the trap of thinking life is, a very serious checklist, don't want to make mistakes, as opposed to just an infinite pool of opportunity if we just allow ourselves to step into it.
So I really like the analogy there. I'm thinking back to when you was a child, you like making things and creating stuff. And there's a gap in the middle for everybody where we go to school, high school, whatever it is, and become serious. And this process happens, and it's like we lose the essence of that creativity, that child who thinks anything's possible. I can do things that I want to do. It's almost like we get out of adulthood and it's like things aren't possible anymore. It's like we decide that, it'd be cool to start a business, but it's just not on the cards for me. As with that child, just never thought of those things. So is it about getting back to that, that inner child?
Yeah, I think it's caring less about perception, right? Because it's almost like it's maybe not failing that scares us most. It's being seen as a failure, and so when you can put walls around that and understand that it really, like, who cares? This is you and your journey and your life. It makes it a lot easier. It really, to me, it comes down to, mitigating criticism, reducing the noise. There's an idea, like if you're, and this is a little morbid, but I think it proves a point. Like if you're sick in a hotel bed, how many people are going to come by the side of the bed, right? Family, loved ones, you can probably picture them, you can count them. Anyone not in that room to begin with, as a starter, why would you care, right? We find a way to pull in so much societal pressure and worry about so many opinions of people that are just, external factors, detail not necessary or intertwined in where you're going.
What is your intention and mission? Like with the company, like everything that you plan over the next 5 to 10 years, like what's your ultimate plan?
Well, from a few different aspects, keynote speaking, continuing to create captivating content, and through video production, helping people realize that they can change their reality by changing the way that they think. I just think that's such a powerful idea, and something that it almost seems fluffy, right? But if you don't believe something, you won't act on that thing. And actions are how you change the world around you. And it's almost like creating content that helps people step back and say, I can do more, I can be more. If I'm not happy here, I can change this. It's creating and manufacturing that awareness.
Here's a morbid question for you. It's like, after you're gone, after everything's said and done, what do you want to have left behind?
I think Nietzsche has a quote. He says, those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music. I think in a perfect world, people say that his work and his message helped me realize that it was okay to dance before the music played. That, I was strong enough, that I was courageous enough to move towards what's meaningful to me, and took action on that. I think if that's something that people said after I was gone, I'd be very, very happy with that.
Well, a wonderful way of putting it. I hate to wrap this. I'm thinking we could talk for hours. Like this could go on for hours. But I think we're back in Miami. Like let's do this again at some point. But
I'd love to, yeah.
Where is, if you were going to refer people like who hadn't watched your stuff before, like where would you direct them? Pieces of content that you would say, go check this out first. Yeah, where's the best place?
Right now, YouTube. You can search Eddie Pinero, and I have a channel up there. And yeah, videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Are you working on any other projects as well that people like should keep an eye out for?
I'm working on a book, so that's coming out. Yeah, that's quite the process, Jordan. Let me tell you. Yeah, that's that with you know, a heavy dose of videos coming out every week. That's, my hands are tied.
Yeah, it sounds pretty hectic. I mean, I couldn't even imagine writing a book. I mean, writing speeches is difficult enough. Like anyway, right. Let's we'll link everything down below so people can find you. Thank you for putting out such amazing resources for people for free of charge for people to find. I don't, like, people like yourself, like, you know, I can't thank you enough, like, for the help that you give to the world. It's amazing. But also, thank you for coming on here. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, and thank you guys. Just a quick note, when I started YouTube, I was talking about a long time ago, Mulliganbrothers was one of the first channels, you know, that I saw at the time in the motivational space, and just to see you guys pivot and you know, grow the way you have, and for us to connect all these years later, it's a surreal thing. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you guys.
No, it's been cool. It's like, you know, same for us. That's a, you know, big compliment for us. So appreciate it a lot. Right, perfect. Thank you so much, man. That was amazing.
Thank you so much to Eddie for your time, your courtesy on the day, and also your continued support afterwards as well. A man who has shaped this industry and somebody who has been a big inspiration to us, and we've worked alongside unknowingly for so many years, and now we get to put this face to the voices, to the speeches, to all his incredible work. So go follow Eddie, linked down below if you want to see more of his resources. And yeah, live by some of his messages, some of his lessons, gain some inspiration by that. Today's video was sponsored by betterhelp.com, where you can get online therapy from professionals using the link in the description. Something I've been doing for a full year now, and I fully recommend it. Guys, my biggest takeaway from this, and my takeaway from everything that we do, but this is my biggest takeaway from this, is be the inspiration for somebody else. So go inspire change by being the inspiration. Go be successful, go lead your path, go do what you want to do, open that business, get that degree, whatever it is. Be the inspiration for somebody else, because you will spark somebody else to be inspired through your actions and through what you do. So go inspire some change, guys. Thank you so much to Mulliganbrothers.com and all the support you have been giving us over at Mulliganbrothers.com. Have a blessed and productive day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.